It's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
Better than mine. I got a packed house yelling, bring them out, bring them out. I'm a hot girl yelling, bring them out, bring them out. All the dope boys yelling, bring them out, bring them out. Put the backstage yelling, bring them out, bring them out. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
All right, welcome in live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. It's College Sports Weekly, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don't forget, today you can follow us on all our social media platforms at Wisconsin Sports Radio or anywhere with the Odyssey app. Join our conversation, if you would, on the talk and text line. That's the Nicolay Law talk and text line at 414-677-1250. Don Wachulis, along with the Professor Dan Underberg, Charlie Usen, guiding this monstrosity here for the next 2 hours. Oh, you do well. To put up with us for 2 hours, you do very well, Charlie, as we make our way through the college landscape. A little bit later, want to talk some college hoops because I thought there were some interesting things that took place over the last week and a half or so. We'll get into some headlines. Hour 2, guys, I want to talk about the Big Ten. FanDuel threw out some over-unders, so I want to obviously talk about our Wisconsin Badgers, but then get your take if anything stands out, whether you thought it was too low, too high with some of the opponents that we'll be finding ourselves in the Big Ten. We'll check in with Brian and Stratton as the head soccer coach. Michael Beatty will join us again in hour number 2. That all happens before we hand out some shovels to close out our fine program. But we start, Professor, with the gift that just keeps on giving. And you know what? I get it. We're in Wisconsin. We're about to talk about Texas Tech. Some people kind of get a little angst about that, like we should be focused more. We could do a 2-minute diatribe and tie it all together in how it affects the Badgers, but why waste 120 seconds and not dive into one of the great stories that just keeps on giving for us this entire summer? So my friend over there texted me the other day, did you see this from The Athletic? And I had seen the headline, but I didn't read. Shocking. I didn't read the article as of yet. So if you don't know, as of right now, we talked about this seemingly for a month straight.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
The whole Tyler Sorsby thing, and then what that led to, the threats of lawsuits and everything else. So what we found out this week from The Athletic is a day before the Attorney General, that being Ken Paxton, wrote that letter to the Big 12, like, if you want to come after Texas Tech, we're going to come after you, and we're going to come after you hard.
Mm-hmm.
$200 million in law. We're going to
shots fired across the bow.
Yes, we're coming right after
Uh-huh.
the Big 12. Well, then we find out the sugar daddy, Cody Campbell of Texas Tech, a few days prior had dumped north of $270,000 into the Attorney General's campaign fund. Conflict of interest? Maybe. I don't know. It's Texas. But the soap opera continues. And as we were talking before we came on the air, where does logic fall in at any point where someone says, you're really, no one will look into this. No one's going to look into this. No one will know that I wrote a check. And by writing the check, asked you maybe, allegedly, to, do us a favor. I'm giving you a significant check. Do us a favor. And lo and behold, the whole thing now gets exposed here in the midst of July. So shout out to Sorsby, even though it's not him.
It's not him. This is his fault.
This is 6 degrees of separation, but the gift just keeps giving.
Well, it's all kind of his fault from the beginning, isn't it?
Well,
it is. It's the origin. Absolutely.
He decided to do this.
But it wasn't Sorsby in this case who wrote the check, though with the $4 million and change he got from Texas Tech, he probably could. But once again, this is the Cody Campbell story in writing this check for a little political favor, Dan.
It's just what we do in Texas. It's
nice. Accent.
It is amazing to me how everybody on the Texas Tech side of this argument just completely bought in that Brandon Sorsby was the answer. This is how we have to go. This is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to get close to a national championship. Everybody was 100% president of the university on down. And now you get to the AG of Texas. And this was just automatic. So I love it. I love this when someone writes this check. And I think I wrote, it was the day before, on the day before of the Office of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton released the letter, 24 hours before he gets his check.
Yeah.
Really?
Wait a couple months at least.
Yeah,
you know?
you couldn't wait until this. You couldn't made an agreement. Say, hey, I'm gonna write you some money. You and I have an agreement. We're just gonna let this cool down, but this is what's gonna be. No, it's a day before.
And I don't care, Charlie, if it's direct deposit. I don't think that bad boy even cleared.
No.
Like, it wasn't even in the account yet when he was having his secretary come in and type up the letter to send to the Big 12 to threaten the Big 12 that you better not. And thankfully, the Big 12, as we talked about, countered it with a very creative way of not allowing the Texas AG to do what he had proposed to do. But man, oh man, this story is so see, Charlie's too young, Dan. He's not going to remember Dallas. This is J.R. Ewing at its finest right now. The soap opera continues.
Yeah, I was not going to be able to pull that one out of my bag at all. I know football is really important in Texas, that they love football so much. You would think that the education would be a little bit better for you to not immediately turn around and then give that speech and say that you're going to help this situation. I mean, that's just crazy. And I think my biggest problem, Wallace, and I've continued to say this, I've been saying this with the World Cup too and what's been happening, there needs to be a clear separation between sports and the state and the government and what we're doing right now. That you have so many moments like this where I think people in the government feel like sports aren't influential enough across our country at this point that they can just butt themselves in and half the country won't care about what they're butting themselves into. At the same time, they're getting a ton of money from lobbyists. If they within the sports world, they're getting a ton of money from people that do care about sports, and the half of the world that does care about the sports is happy with these people interfering in their leagues and all this. And I think that's insane. At some point here, and I think this is a big step, what we're hearing now is that the Big 12, the NCAA, every one of these sports leagues, when it is an issue that is directly for you and your problem and somebody breaking your rules and not breaking legal grounds at all, you have to handle that on your own. And to continuously allow people to come in and spend tons of money that have nothing to do with your sport, that are mad about things that are happening within your sport, somebody at some point has to shut that down. I think we're starting to get towards that step because people are starting to notice that a lot of people are starting to butt into the world of sports in order to give themselves some kind of ground for power.
It's always been that way. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but the idea of somebody with a checkbook having influence, I think historically is something we'll find. And I don't care what we're talking about, sports, you name it, right? It's who has the checkbook. The idea, however, now, especially with what's going on in Congress, Dan, with this idea of the fair play for whatever, however the bill that, Senator Cruz and that bipartisan effort has written, wait now. If this was uncovered, let's wait and see how the Athletic or whatever news agency does a bit of a deep dive to see what senators suddenly had contributions to their campaign fund, either for or against, right? We'll see how they vote once this thing comes out, but it'll be interesting to see where the contributions lie and mainly from what schools, where the tie-ins are from what schools with regards to this, because that's going to be the next step.
That's going to be the next step. And you know how you fix this for those guys? Whatever happened to the good old Dallas way of doing things with a briefcase full of cash? You can't follow that. You can't.
Well, okay, so let's go back to when, and we've said this a gazillion times, in the old framework of what college sports was, when we actually thought going out and getting high school kids was the way to go, when we would sit here and talk about the 4- and 5-star recruits, and when a couple of those would get landed with the Wisconsin Badgers, how euphoric we were about what this team could be in a couple of years. That's all gone by the wayside. But in that realm, let's not forget the parking tickets with the envelopes of cash sitting there, the McDonald's bags that Tennessee infamously were handing out that the baseball team spoofed the football program with by lining McDonald's bags all along the bench in the dugout as a joke once that got exposed. You're right. When it was cash, the trail was a little more difficult to find. There might be withdrawals, whatever, but
you had to get caught.
It was a little more difficult to trace than what we have in this electronic era, where you simply look and go, oh, you wired set amount to set amount, connect the dots, boom, done. For the athletic investigative journalism just got really easy because I don't have to interview 40 people. I just need to dig up some records and find point A to point B and call it a day.
Yeah, it's now I don't have to work as hard. But it's just the idea right now of that going on just tells you how much sports hasn't changed. It's that and that's going to continue to go that way, and where a particular sport is king, right? So like you said, Texas and football, Florida and football, and basically anywhere with that SEC realm, I'll put that. And then I guess, other universities on the northern side have probably found different ways to go about the same thing, but it's just amazing to me. And then you can look at Kentucky in basketball, you can do all this. It's going to maintain. It's just, you wonder, it's become just such a parody of itself. Right. Between the athletes that are now legally getting paid, right. And the salary of the coaches, and now the salaries of your GMs, and now the assistant coaches, and all these things that are building up about, like you were saying earlier, how important sports is. I think about this, and what happens if you don't have a football team? It's like there are a lot of people out there. It's not a college without football. Really. It's not a college without football. Yeah, you're losing part of your culture. Okay, fine. Still a college.
It's still a college, but let's equate those with a football program with those that don't.
Sure.
And we have a couple of instances of those within state.
Right down the road,
Now Marquette, I think, is the exception, because Marquette has been over the last few decades has had success. So nobody really looks at Marquette and worries about a football program. But I think we hear bantered every now and then. What if UWM got a football program? What if UW Green Bay got a football program? What would that mean for the stature of their university? I agree with you 100%. Not having a football program does not equate to not having a university. But in our world, within our culture, it equates to a certain presence as far as what people perceive that university to be. It's why professional sports are so important to a city. It's why I will firmly believe on different things that I've heard. The Bucks were never going to leave. When the Bucks were sold, 15, 20 years ago now, the Bucks were not going to leave. That there was talk about leaders, movers, and shakers within the community that were going to pool some money. They were going to buy the team. They were going to hold on to the team till they found an owner that we got what we got, which was a new arena, and moved the thing forward. It's the perception. So the perception of Milwaukee by having the Brewers and the Bucks, and we'll say, a kissing cousin in Green Bay with the Packers, the perception of the community is greater than name some other places. Like right now, let's say even St. Louis. Yes, they have hockey and baseball, but the fact they lost football, the fact they don't have basketball, I think the perception of the city from a business standpoint is different. And I think not having a football program makes the perception of a university different from those that do.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
And does it change the fact that it's not? No, a kid graduating from UW Green Bay, his degree, let's say out of the business school, is going to be just as good as Wisconsin or Marquette or wherever we're talking about within our fair state. I just think, Dan, it's the perception that changes things.
I think I get that. I just think the perception only matters when you're winning sometimes, especially when it's in college or something like that. Now, look, if you look at it at Alabama, you look at them at Mississippi, you look at those blue bloods, the Georgia, stuff like that, there's no way you would ever see football go away. But does the University of Wisconsin-Madison change? Does it change? with or without football.
I think it
Right?
does.
I think you remember the 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a brutal time. Early 80s was a brutal time. Through the 80s, it was a brutal time. And Wisconsin, nothing was really going well for Wisconsin except for hockey,
True.
you know.
True.
But they were still getting students in. They were still look. I'm not advocating that football goes away.
You got a show to do. What are you doing over there?
That's not what I'm doing. What we're putting so much value into this one thing in university settings. It's so important. We can't lose this. We have to have this player. We have to have this coach. If we don't get this guy, then the world stops spinning a little bit. And we've got to rethink about what the purpose of football is, what it means in the grand scheme of college, and doing that, because right now this tail is wagging the dog.
Absolutely.
This tail now has teeth.
Absolutely.
Right. And when you have college students whose fees are now going to support the student athletes that are getting paid, some of them they're very well, you've got to question what are we doing and why are we doing this?
And not only is the tail wagging the dog, Charlie, but now we're starting to see the trickle down effect into like Division 3 with what Division 3 athletes, their perception of what they're worth and what they need and what they're now going to do is from a recruiting standpoint, right? You're going to have universities that are going to be creative. It's not quite there yet. Division 3 is going to be a couple of minutes behind. Right. I'll say it that way. But we'll get to that point where all of a sudden Division 3 athletes are going to get this, that, or the other thing. And then you're going to see, again, the chase that Dan was just talking about from the other schools to try to keep up with, as my father used to say, the Joneses.
Well, and even if the D3 schools are going to be a step or two behind, the moment that NCAA announced that they were going to do NIL and allow NIL, my D3 football team at Elmhurst University, which again was one of the worst in the country at that point, they were talking to us about NIL immediately, about how you can go and get it, like what you need to talk about, what the do's and don'ts about it. Like they were ready to go with the information, at least. And yes, they don't have the same kind of plan set up as these big universities to get these players that type of money, but they're ready to change this. And if we go back to talking about like money running all of this, you will never get to a point, as long as football continues to make as much money as it does, even at the worst universities at the lowest level, when football brings in that much money, is going to consistently still be at the top. The moment it doesn't, they'll give up on it. Like we're talking about here, a lot of these schools, a lot of these D3 schools, they've been doing that. They've cut these programs. They've shut down their universities because they put too much faith into football and then it crashed, and they were ready to just blow it all up at that point. I think you will see at some point here some of these bigger universities, you talk about the trickle down effect, but then the build up effect. If you see D3 universities shutting down their programs, the D2 universities shutting down their programs because it's not worth the money, I think at places like Wisconsin, where you do have the Packers, where you do have so many other successful sports programs, that could be a threat. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen because it's still a Big Ten university. As long as you're in the Big Ten, you're going to have money going towards your football program, or your football program bringing in money for the university. But at some of these other schools across the country where they're in states that don't have these professional football teams, that's what they're relying on, is their college football team. The moment you are in a state where there are professional football teams, or there's other sports, and your team stops making the money, these schools will make harsh decisions fast.
You know, gentlemen, as we go to break, I'm very proud of you guys.
Thanks.
We started talking about something that took place in Texas, and we brought it right back in to our
that was the plan.
That was the
damn
the whole way. That was the flow chart that we set up
It's got
to
the
kick
whiteboard
off.
over there.
Actually,
We just followed the little boxes.
All the equations to get us where we need to go. All there. All right, let's get to a break. On the other side of the break, some things happening in the world of college hoops with regards to non-conference schedules. UW Green Bay doing some interesting stuff we get to discuss after we take a timeout. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
in the distance, colorful fishes, blowing me kisses. I reach but I miss it. Deep in the scatter, loving pattern, passing impressions is something that matters.
I could just sit back, listen to this one for quite a bit. You know, Charlie's influencing my musical taste.
You know, Your Direction by them? That's a banger song. I requested that for my sister's wedding because she wanted requests for all of her siblings. She's like, everybody gets their own song. Whatever. I was like, I'm going with Little Goose.
Well, now I got to go and search that up on the next break. Charlie, when you give out homework, that's not fun. That's not fair. You
it's
can't
just
give
to
out
listen
homework.
to a song. I'm the best teacher on earth if that's the homework, man.
That's
Are you
true.
kidding me?
That's very well
It's
put.
too much work.
So after we bantered about what the bumper music was and Charlie's sister's wedding, welcome back to College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. So over the last week and a half, guys, we started to see the non-conference schedules being released. I want to start with Marquette because I think Marquette's one of the more interesting stories within our state as far as the basketball team goes, because I think a lot of people are expecting a huge bounce back with Shaka Smart, who finally, I shouldn't say it that way, that just sounds wrong, but did finally dabble into the portal and picked up a quality ball player to, I think, to help fill out. You'll start to see now all of the preseason rankings. One of them had Marquette 3 in the Big East behind UConn and St. John. So I think from a national perspective, we're getting some good vibes, I'll say it that way, in looking forward to the basketball season. And obviously we got a long way to go before we get there. I know the teams are in the midst of their summer workouts right now, whether they're at the Al or at the Kohl Center up in Madison or in Green Bay or over here at UWM, whatever the case may be. I'm hoping that Marquette can bump up like Wisconsin has been consistent. I'm looking for a bump up year from UWM and seeing what they can do. I'd like to see UW Green Bay continue their success off of last year and get the 4 D1 schools really up and running at a pretty significant pace, because I think that just makes life a whole lot easier when we go the opposite of what we're experiencing the last few days, where we're hot, muggy, sweaty, and then we go to cold and freezing. And quite honestly, I'll take hot, muddy, and sweaty, muggy and sweaty prior to the, scarves and battery operated coats and everything else. But as part of the non-conference schedule for Marquette, they're going to have an exhibition game against Green Bay. They're going to take on Michigan. They've got Penn State. I mean, they've got schools, I think, that are going to test them. Yes, as our friend Jeff Orlowski would say, they've got the Directional Sisters of the Blind on the schedule, like everybody does. Yeah. But I love the fact that they've got some quality opponents like Michigan, the defending national champs in Ann Arbor. So taking your team on the road in, air quote, hostile environment, that's a great test. Yeah. We're going to get back to the Green Bay thing in just a minute, but my hopes are high for this Marquette Golden Eagle team, Dan.
Yeah, mine are too, especially, you kept your core young players. They're just going to grow. And that's the goal. And then you have obviously who you brought in from Louisville in the 5 spot and being able to kind of rectify that situation after years of challenges with that. What I love about college basketball is that they've got, yes, there are the Directional Sisters of the Poor on there, but it's so much easier to watch college basketball early season than it is sometimes to watch college football early season.
Absolutely.
And they have figured that out. And yeah, you're going to have those games in between your Wednesday night games where they're not, maybe as watchable, but at the same time, you've got Duke and Michigan State, and you've got all these other universities popping up and saying, yeah, we have an opportunity. And in one point to build the brand and to make some money, but the other part is you're building your resume, your cause for your seeding moving forward throughout the entire season. Football is a little different, right? You lose that 1 or 2 games because you only have 12, and it changes everything. Yeah. With college basketball has a little bit more flexibility and just say, yeah, we can play some good teams, and if we lose one early, that's okay. It's not going to kill us.
And Charlie, what I really like, as Dan just pointed out, this ability now, I think teams have realized from a marketing perspective, from a financial perspective, but because of the length of the season, you can take on those key matchups, those marquee games, so to speak. You can go play a tournament wherever it might be, which always sounds so awesome. Over Thanksgiving, as the weather, as the weather starts to turn here, and these guys are playing someplace warm. But you can play those marquee games early, and even if you lose, it really doesn't have an effect once we get to March. Now, it can bolster your resume, but I think over time we haven't seen it necessarily be a detractor on your resume if you're losing a game in late October, November, and then sometimes even early December, because then all of a sudden it flips, you get into conference play, and that then becomes the major meat and potatoes, I'll say, of your season.
Well, and I think to your point, you brought it up, is that it can bolster your resume too. Is you can lose those games early on in the season, and it's like everybody's like, fine, you're good, you'll figure it out. But if you beat a Duke and if you beat a Kentucky early on in the season, these big blue blood schools that we always talk about, all of a sudden at the end of the year, they're looking, well, Wisconsin beat Duke at the beginning of the season. Like, we got to add that in. And why I think that it's so different from college football, because when you go towards the end of the year with that, if you win those games at the beginning of the season, it doesn't really affect you all that much. If you're a good team already, they're like, well, we can't say that because it was early on in the season and Florida State wasn't good early on in the season. They figured it out. That's different. There's so many more semantics with how they choose the football playoffs versus if you lose early on in the season to one of these good teams as one of the other big programs, that gets remembered all year long for you. It's the exact opposite from basketball. I don't know how they ended up doing that and how that ended up being the case between the two different sides when they're both within the NCAA. But the fact that you can go out and lose these games early on in basketball and it won't matter to you, but you win and all of a sudden it's great. And that's not the case in football. It's the exact opposite in football. It's so weird to me.
I think it's interesting, Dan, I think you touched on it to kind of answer what Charlie's question is, the fact that, like baseball, for lack of a better way of having an analogy, basketball is so much longer than that confined time that we have as far as college football goes. So yeah, losing a game or two hurts more, even from a percentage, a pure math perspective, than it would necessarily at the basketball side of things. However, that's been, I guess, the one nice byproduct of an expanded playoff is that, think back 5, 6, 7 years ago when you took the Final Four, not even the Final Two, but the Final Four, and you lost a game, I don't know, week 3, and suddenly people are like, uh-oh, you can't lose another one. And then you lose a heartbreaker, let's say in week 7, and suddenly you're a dynamic team playing well. You hit a hiccup, whatever the case may be, and suddenly people are like, yeah, no, you're going to go play in the Mayo Bowl or whatever it is. You don't have a chance. So the byproduct of an expanded football playoff, I think, has been beneficial in allowing teams a hiccup, in week 3. Let's take this way. If we look at Wisconsin and Notre Dame, there are a ton of pundits nationally who think Notre Dame can pencil themselves in to the college football playoffs once we get into late November. Let's live in a world of rainbows and unicorns where Wisconsin beats Notre Dame at Lambeau Field because of the fact, Dan, that we have an expanded football playoff. There will be no one that will write Notre Dame off. There may be questions. Yeah. The faithful may wonder what happened, how did it happen, but Notre Dame will still be in the mix. And almost to the basketball perspective, if Wisconsin beats Notre Dame, think of what the difference will be as far as an argument goes as to the success of the season when we get to the end of it for the Badgers, if they can, in rainbows and unicorns, beat Notre Dame at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, if that were the case, where if Wisconsin upsets Notre Dame at Lambeau, suddenly Wisconsin gets some national respect, some national attention that it has not had for 2 or 3 years, right? It just hasn't had that. Even when you beat top 25 teams near the end of the season, no one was looking at Wisconsin in terms of any terms, just looking at that program like it was moving up.
Yeah.
Right. So if they are able to take that, then that kind of that hangover effect, that's the wrong word, kind of lingers for the next 2 to 3 games. So if Wisconsin beats Notre Dame and then wins the next 2 games, which, you feel like they should, and suddenly they're 3-0,
Yeah.
people are looking at Wisconsin differently, not because of the last 2, but because of the first game.
And that explanation goes right into what Charlie was talking about as well. Let's take the 2 schools we were just describing in Wisconsin and Notre Dame and put it on the hardwood. So hypothetically, Notre Dame is a nationally ranked team going into the season. The preseason pundits love Notre Dame, and Wisconsin is thought to be a solid, good team, but beats them, right? And then goes on a little bit of a run and maybe grabs another one against, I don't know, I'll just throw out like a Illinois or Michigan State. Again, it draws eyes and it gives them the perspective of, listen, we're somebody to be contended with, which becomes a big thing as the season moves on, especially in basketball, because we're still in this realm now as we've expanded to 537 teams that now make the basketball playoffs of nothing but what? 11, 12, 13 people sitting in a boardroom eating chicken wings and pressing buttons to see where they want to put teams. It's such a backward way of doing things, but anyhow, it goes back to the whole perspective thing. Let me, before we lose track here, UW Green Bay, with the fact that now they're going to play Marquette in this exhibition game, they've just announced a home and home this week where Wisconsin's going to go play Green Bay at the Rush Center. Green Bay will then play Wisconsin next year at the Kohl Center. They're exhibitions.
Mm-hmm.
But think of how that's changed as well. Exhibitions used to be in the cloak of night. It was like the Colts leaving Baltimore, right? The vans would pull up, they'd sneak out in the middle of the night, go play, their exhibition game, and then sneak back. And every once in a while, something would leak. A trainer might say, oh, yeah, it ended up like this, and so look good. Now, schools are starting to realize, open the gym. We can sell tickets. We get it. It's an exhibition game, but it's a test for us, right? We get to get on the court, play some competition. And then as a school, we can turn this into a revenue generator. It seems like a no duh kind of a thing, but it's taken years for it to kind of come to the point of, even though it's an exhibition game, people are going to show up. And especially when you got 2 Division I schools in the state playing each other.
Well, so then let's have an exhibition tournament in Wisconsin. Let's find a way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's have UWM, UW Green Bay, Marquette, and Wisconsin play where nobody loses anything in terms of national prominence by doing exhibition. And you let it rotate between arenas or gyms. I mean, if the NFL can find a way to make money by potentially someday losing a preseason game, but letting people watch practices and co-practices and things like that, there's got to be a way for these 4 teams in the state to play each other for funsies, air quote, and then just use that as a revenue generator.
And I love the fact, Charlie, that he phrased it as an exhibition. So again, all you have to do is make sure in the scenario, and we've talked about this a gazillion times, you don't have UWM and UW Green Bay play each other because they're both from the same conference. So one year it's UWM against the Badgers, one year it's UW Green Bay against Marquette, the next year flip, and as Dan said, rotate that sucker around the state so that Fiserv gets it, Panther Arena gets it, Kohl Center gets it, Rush Center gets it. It's state schools. People are going to show up.
Would you throw in a couple WEAC teams too?
I was just thinking that. Why not?
You're all getting money from the state, so you might as well involve them in it and see if you can get everybody a little money out of that.
Yeah, I think, boy, that'd be interesting.
Like the top 4 WEAC teams from the past season just get to go. And it's like Whitewater, Oshkosh, La Crosse, Platteville all get to go play in that tournament.
So everybody plays 2 games,
right?
Yeah. So the Big 4 play, and then but you were also
a D3, and then look at us. All checks do not go to the Attorney General of Texas. They go right here to us at the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
We have campaigns too.
Yes, we do. We have agendas, doggone it. You know what our next agenda is? To get to a break, because we got commercials and to pay for this fine, lovely program of ours. We need to take care of that. When we come back, we'll get to some headlines. We're live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, and we're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
your radio. It's the headlines. Tell me, have you heard it? Headlines. Read all about it, baby. Headlines. Headlines.
All right, as we make our way back up to the top of the hour, let's get to some headlines here. Once again, this is College Sports Weekly. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And Dan, as you were vacationing yet last week, as we said on our fine program,
Yeah, thanks for the warm welcome, by the way.
there was not one weekend that could contain our friend over there to celebrate the 4th. He needed 2. But now that he's back, we didn't even get a chance last week with the abbreviated show and the Brewers, as they had to take on the Pirates in a doubleheader prior to the All-Star game. Talk about the new unis that will be unveiled when they take on said Notre Dame at Lambeau Field. This soundbite is courtesy of ABC 27 out of Madison.
I think they're super cool. Yeah, the little jersey reveal that they did for us was awesome. You know, we opened up the jerseys, surprised all of us. Then we revealed them to the team yesterday. So that was super cool to see everyone's reactions. You know, on our Instagram page, you can see like they did like 1 through 15 best reactions. So I think it was really cool to see that. And I think the chrome on the red is super nice touch, and can't wait to play them on September 6th.
And that was Colton Joseph. I failed to say that going into it, the new Badger quarterback. So, Dan, I'll say this. When I saw the initial pictures, I was like, okay. But when I saw the video, what I find is that still pictures don't do the uniforms justice as far as the chrome goes. Because when I saw the still pictures, to me, it just looked gray. And I thought,
yeah,
okay.
I get you. Yeah.
But when I saw the video and you see the chrome on the red on red with the helmets and the whole 9 yards, I'm in. And I've heard mixed reviews. Some people are good, some people not so much.
Right.
What is your take, Mr. Alumnus?
I love the helmet. I think it works. And I had the first initial reaction, like, why do they have gray on there? Then I looked at it again, like, wait, I think that's chrome, right?
Yeah.
And I like that because it's something different. I was never a fan of the red, with the red helmet with the white W.
Yeah.
You're just flipping the color scheme.
Yeah.
There's no originality in that. There's nothing there. So I like what they did with the helmet. With the uniform, I'm never a big fan of the red on red, same color, white on white, whatever. It's just not my thing.
Okay.
For me, it was a little too much. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but the helmet I'm in. I like the gray face mask. I like what they did with the chrome W's. I like the back on the back where I think it says on Wisconsin on the back. I think they hit it really well with that.
The only thing, Charlie, that I push back on, and I get why they're doing it, and I understand it, the Culver's patch.
It really stands out.
Right.
It's exactly
on
what they want.
Red. Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. From
Yeah.
an advertising
I know.
perspective, they're all in. And I thought it was a great marriage as far as putting a patch on a uniform, much like Harley with the Bucks and Northwestern Mutual with the Brewers. The fact that Culver's is, the lead sponsor for the Wisconsin Badger football team. Absolutely. But I'd like what they're going to roll into Lambeau Field wearing. It's just like, can we move the patch just for one game so that we get the full effect of the uniform and not, think about what flavor ice cream we're getting on the way home?
Or they should have gone all in with it and done an entire Culver's uniform and just gone
my gosh.
crazy,
Oh my
gone
gosh.
different.
Oh
like
my gosh, the
blue and
butter
white
burger or
and-
something on the side of the
that'd
helmet.
be
Yeah.
sick. Oh, now you're thinking.
And if they win, they get the little coupon with the kids' baggage.
Exactly. Oh,
What are we doing? We a few minutes
This is
ago,
not a
Charlie,
social
came up with a
marketing show,
great
dude. Yeah.
basketball exhibition within the state, and we've already sunk to making Butterburger helmets and
Butterburger
uniforms.
helmets. Let's do that.
With these uniforms, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I don't hate them. Same as you guys. I saw the numbers in the helmet at first, and I was like, "Is that black? Are they going
Yeah,
all black?"
right.
And I was like, "Okay, that's interesting." I don't think I like the chrome W. I think if it were me, I would have gone with, first of all, the whole helmet, making that like cherry chrome red more so, and have more fun with that. I think like, is it Louisiana Lafayette that has the chrome red helmets? I would have liked something more like that, especially with the chrome logo. I think it would have fit in a little bit better. And then the chrome numbers, I think that's just going to be awful.
I think it's
live.
gonna be tough to read.
I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be look and translate really bad on live TV when they're playing on the field. I just am not a fan of that. I'll wait and see. Sometimes I change my opinion when I do see them on the field. Right now, these seem boring to me. Like I want something different, something special. If you're gonna do a special jersey, do a special jersey.
Let me jump in on that one. Yeah, I agree. We've done enough with the W.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got a Bucky Badger. We've got different things that we can do with that helmet, and I'd like them to do something more creative with that. I love the Motion W, but at the same time, we've seen it black, we've seen it white, we've seen it white, red, and chrome. Great. Let's do something different now, completely
but
different.
I'll be honest, you got to be careful because, to equate this again with the Brewers in those city uniforms, the Wisco uniforms, not necessarily a huge fan of the color scheme and the idea having who calls us Wisco? The only people who call us Wisco is like Tim Brando.
Or if I'm like texting it or something.
Yeah.
That's the only
I mean, I don't know if that one equated as well as they had hoped. I have no idea what their sales are. The Brewers could be thumbing their nose at my comment right now. As long as their sales are doing well, they could care less.
Which from what I've seen looks like it's doing fine.
What my opinion is. But I just think sometimes you got to be careful in taking variations of what you do from a traditional standpoint.
I disagree because you've got another logo. You have a Badger. Logo? You have Bucky. That's
You're
other
not
logo.
Putting Bucky on the side of a helmet.
Why?
That's like putting the barrel man on the hat.
And they should have done that. They did do that on the alternate hats. Like,
Absolutely.
It was awesome. I love alternate characters. Like,
I don't
like
want
that's
Bucky
awesome.
on.
Oh, come on.
Give me the Butterburger helmet.
Okay, fine. That's negotiated truce. We will have the Butterburger helmet. I am all in.
In the midst of the NBA Summer League, one name to keep an eye on, John Tanji, former Badger, having a great summer league for the Boston Celtics. So let's hope that parlays into something for him right once we get to the fall. Can we place the order? Let's call that sucker in and get it delivered immediately. All right, hour number 1 has come to an end. When we come back, we'll look at the Big Ten overs and unders as we move into football season. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
Basketball, football, baseball. From Division I to Division III, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome in. Hour 2, College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don Macholis, along with Professor Dan Underberg and Charlie Usen here for the next 60 minutes, as we're going to talk about some over-unders with regards to the Big Ten. Michael Beatty, the soccer coach over at Bryan and Stratton College, will join us. We'll hand out some shovels as we wrap up Hour 2. You can join the conversation, as always, on the Nicolay Law Talk and Text line at 414-677-1250. Our thanks to our affiliates in Wausau, 93.9 The Game, in Green Bay, Appleton at 99.7 FM and 1440 AM WNFL. As always, here in Milwaukee on 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan, and in Duluth, Superior at 710 AM The Game. So, guys, we're going to go through the Big Ten, look at what FanDuel at this point here in July, because we're under 7 weeks now until college football starts.
Giggly. Yeah.
It's the worst, I think, right now, because I don't want to give up summer. We spend so long trying to get to summer. I hate to see summer go away. But then the idea that football starts kind of lessens the blow a little bit as we get back into the swing of things. So here we go. These are the projections as they stand. I said FanDuel, my apologies. It's DraftKings that I've got opened up at this moment. So Indiana, they say at 12, Iowa at 8, Maryland 4, Michigan 9, Michigan State 4, Minnesota 7, Nebraska 7, Ohio State 12, Oregon 11, Penn State 6, Purdue 2, Rutgers 5, UCLA 3, USC 9, Washington 8, and they have our Badgers at 4. So let's start with Wisconsin, and then I'm going to ask you guys, of that list, was there a team that stood out to you where you thought it was either too low or too high? Because I have one immediately I would jump to. But when you think about the Badgers, and they have right now, again at DraftKings, their over-under as win totals go at 4. Professor, I start with you. Too low, too high?
Can I pick just right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know we're going to get in an argument over this, but Again, based on previous historical data, we'll call it that way, I don't have a ton of hope. I can see Wisconsin getting as high as 6. Okay. I think 4 is probably low, but I will know what we need to know about this team in the first 3 games.
I think it's going to be interesting, Charlie, because obviously for coach, the seat's warm going into the season. It's not about whether or not it is. You look at all the major publications out there. I mean, he's within the top 3 as far as coaches going into the season who are on the hot seat. And again, you've got the Notre Dame game. Then you get Western Illinois and Eastern Michigan, which in my mind are the 2 most quintessential games of this season for his career as a Badger coach. You're going to have to dominate. If those are games we have not dominated, then you run a stretch. But if DraftKings has it the way they currently do, you finish the year against Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue, which aren't necessarily going to be powerhouses. You could find yourself at the back end of the season putting some games together. So your idea, Dan, of it being as high as 6, that's where that run comes from in my mind. However, do you make it that far? Lose one of those directional games, I don't know if you make it that far. Go ahead, Charlie. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good. I think I look at Luke Fickell's tenure ending if they go 1-2, 0-3 in the first 3 games. Like, he has to win both Western Illinois, Eastern Michigan.
Absolutely.
He has to win them at least. And you would hope that he blows them out. If he doesn't blow them out, like you say, he stays on that hot seat. If he loses one of those games, I think he gets fired. Like, I think it's like the way the college football atmosphere has gone, the way the sports atmosphere has changed, the leash on a lot of these guys, when you're spending so much money, especially on a guy like Luke Fickell, you have to start making changes. And with a new AD, that's the other side of things.
There you go.
The Eichhorst coming in here, being Barry Alvarez's guy, being friends with Greg Gard, like he's got relationships with everybody else in Wisconsin besides Luke Fickell. And I think that really puts Luke Fickell under the spotlight for this university. At the same time, I'm pretty confident they're going to go out there and play really well against those two teams. I have a good feeling about this team this year. And I understand that you look at their schedule and the Big Ten is never going to be easy. At the same time, I also look at the Big Ten and say, and the schedule for the Badgers ahead of them and say, I see a world where they can win almost all of these games. Like, not saying obviously they're going to win 12 games, but going out there, I'm not going to say, oh, they're just going to get killed by Penn State. Oh, they're just going to get killed by USC. No, I think they can go out there and give those guys a fight for a while. And yeah, maybe at halftime I go, okay, no, they're not winning this game. But going into those games, I feel better about this Wisconsin Badgers team than a 4-win total says.
I think Charlie makes a good point, Dan, because you're catching some teams in the midst of transition. And I think in the midst of transition, you never know what you're going to get. Now, you've seen this, and I'll just jump at this one real quick, and I'll touch upon it later with UCLA. I think UCLA by DraftKings is rated way too low because you've got a coaching change where you're bringing in a number of transfers from a previous program. And we've seen how Cignetti at Indiana, we talk about the money portion at Indiana. I think sometimes what gets underlooked is the fact he brought so many of his players. So the transition was so much easier. They know the terminology. They know how he operates. Then you plug and play some other guys to help elevate, and then they've been off to the races ever since. I think UCLA is going to be one of those, and I'll get to that in a moment. But again, after Notre Dame, it's the Western Illinois and Eastern Michigan, which you hope that they should absolutely roll through. You hope. Penn State, coaching change, what that's going to be like. I understand it's in Happy Valley, but what's it going to be like with this coaching change? I don't think people think of Penn State being as dominant as they've been in the past as a contender. They've not really been dominant in making it as far as the playoffs go, but being a contender. Michigan State, coaching change. Fitzgerald now takes over the program. UCLA, that's my kind of there. USC to me is the one to always look out for because they look like they've retooled and they're going to be strong, but we get USC at home. So on October 24th, can we have a rainstorm and some wind and some cooler weather to make life miserable there? The other one, though, that I would always question is Iowa. Iowa's just old school, put on a leather helmet, ground and pound. We're going to make your life miserable. That always is just, I think, one of the tougher ones on the schedule. And then Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue, and then the guy who rows his boat with one arm in Minnesota that'll have everybody fired up, but that will be at home. There's a path, I think, to what Charlie said, Dan, where you look at all of these games and go, there's potential, not to say again that they're going to go 12-0.
No, I guess where I see this team is that they are going to be much more competitive, at least in the front half of this year than we saw last year. But sometimes best case scenarios don't quite equate to wins. And I could see them losing some brutal games. I don't mean getting blown out, just losing painfully.
Yeah.
It just, losing painfully at Penn State, those types of games where teams that are trying to recover themselves and build up again tend to find themselves on the short end of the stick.
If we can just get the offense a little more, right? The defense last year played really well, especially in the back half of the season. If we can get an offense that will show up just a little,
be nice for a quarterback to play an entire season. Like, that's the biggest key to getting
an offense. Beyond the second game?
Yeah, that's true. That's the biggest key to getting an offense going is by having your quarterback stay on the field, having an offensive line stay healthy throughout the majority of the season, because that was a big problem last year for this team too. You saw a lot of the veteran guys in that group fall off the field one by one throughout the season. You need a quarterback to be able to stay on the field and an offensive line to be able to stay on the field. And if you can do that, I think this Badgers offense will be much more successful than we've seen over the course of the Luke Fickell tenure.
I like how you think.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's just I'm too old to be happy and rainbows and unicorns. I think Wisconsin is in a place where it's going to need to make a change. and to get to where it wants to go. To a degree, what Chris McIntosh did right before he left to get things set up through the state can help make a difference. But right now, the Big Ten is so competitive. It's a really, really good league.
It is.
Right? Where Indiana picked your third highest win total. They were at 9.
No, they're up there in double digits, sir.
Oh, I thought you said
Indiana's at 12.
At 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
Iowa, I believe, is the third with 8
Okay.
behind USC.
Okay. So, I got that confused. I just, at first, when I heard that Indiana, and I misunderstood it, and I thought they were lower, like, what is going on there? They're only your defending national champions.
Right.
But if you look at the teams that Wisconsin, has to play, on the back end, they're pretty minimal. They're pretty average, but on the front end, you're playing some pretty good teams. And do you lose the team if you lose those games?
That's true. That's true.
So what does that do to the culture of your team going into those last 3 games if you're having a struggling season?
So, Charlie, when you look at it, is there a team there that you think is too high or too low based on win totals as of today?
Looking through all of the teams on this list here, I mean, like Iowa, you always want to say they're too high. Like 8 wins feels too high, and then they end up winning 8 games.
Sure.
Like every single year, they end up playing Big Ten football better than everybody else. So I think you want to say that. I think Maryland is a team that if they can, it's very Wisconsin Badgers-esque. If they can figure out how to get an offense going consistently on a field, they have, I think, in my mind, a good enough coaching staff to get those guys to work throughout an entire season. But you got to keep the same kind of offense on the field for an entire season. I think Michigan's going to have a semi-down year. Again, you had so much drama this offseason. Once again, I know that hasn't deterred Michigan in the past, but this feels like the first time in a while where it's going to start catching up to you after a little bit, especially when you have so many guys that are willing to hop into the transfer portal with the new NIL world around us, that if you have a stumble to start the season and all, which I think Michigan can with, like we're talking about, a change in the coaching staff, that could end up being a problem for them too.
Maryland, to me, Dan, is the inversion of what Michigan State is in basketball.
Yeah.
Where Michigan State, Izzo's teams seem to struggle early on, and then once you turn the calendar into February, it's like they catch fire. Maryland, to me, always catches fire from the jump, and then they get to about week 4, and then it's like someone pulls the rug out from under them. So for you, Daniel, what was a team that you thought maybe was too high, too low, with regards to these total wins?
Well, I look at this Big Ten conference, and it's really tough to tell. My feeling is I agree. Iowa might be too low. I think they're right in that place. They're either going to win 7 or win 9, right? Every year. It's, and I 100% agree with that. And I want to say I agree that Wisconsin's only going to win 4. Okay. My head tells me they're going to win 6.
Okay.
My head tells me they're going to win 6. They're going to just sneak into a bowl game. But I don't know that saves Luke Fickell.
So please clear a path on I-94. Our friend is headed right to the Potawatomi Sportsbook. He's going to take the over on the Badgers. I like that.
I don't feel good about that.
Daniel, we're not saying it's rainbows and unicorns, but I like the optimism.
6 wins. Optimism.
All right.
Ooh.
Well, think of where we've been. And for me right now, it's UCLA. I think Bob Chesney coming from James Madison. We've seen a lot of these coaches now. Again, we can go Cignetti. We can name a number of them that have come up from the Power 5, moving into the Power 4, that have brought some of their players with them, but they come with an energy. I mean, the things I read about Chesney and what he's doing a couple of months ago, driving around campus on Friday night, delivering pizzas to the frat house and sitting there and having conversations, just trying to do almost a grassroots campaign of getting the fan base re-energized. I think with what he's had as far as success goes at James Madison and prior, I think he's got a track record. Now, I'm not saying UCLA is going to be Indiana of a few years ago where suddenly they go from the basement to 11 wins, but I think 3 is awfully low for a team that I think could essentially find themselves at the 6-win mark and do a little bit of damage in a good way to the pocketbook. If I follow you to Potawatomi, you take Wisconsin. I got UCLA when we hit the kiosk there on Canal Street.
Well, you lead the way. You lead the way, and I'll decide if I
scary.
want to follow.
Because then there's pit stops, Dan. They've got people dealing. There's pit stops along the way. But that's the crazy part, though, of trying to figure this out now. Again, no one knows. You have an idea of what's on paper. To me, it's the same thing of when the Packers go to minicamp and everybody gets excited. I'm like, they're in helmets, T-shirts, and shorts. How excited can you get? Oh, so-and-so looks great. He should. He's a professional athlete with all of the stuff afforded to them. They should look like Adonises running around in T-shirts and helmets. It's different when you put the pads on. It's different when you look at what the coaches have to do from a strategic standpoint, the adjustments that have to be made in-game, halftime. You can go right down the line. So there will be those that will stumble on in over-under on a DraftKings, on at Potawatomi, whatever the case may be now, and can pound their chest and say, I told you. But let's face it, there's a lot of luck when we're sitting in the middle of July that who's going to be successful and who isn't.
And there's a lot of this too. We get it as usual because the new era that we're in, we get really excited about the new guys that are coming to the team that are going to make a difference. But the real question is, will they once the pads get on? Okay. We've been excited about players in the past that haven't delivered. That can be football, basketball, whatever it is. And every team's got those.
Yeah.
Right. But it's the teams that are sitting at the 4-win, 5-win total that are desperate for it to work out. And the ultimate question is, will it or won't it? Because if it doesn't work out, then the guys you want to keep, of course, are getting recruited to play elsewhere. And do they want to stick around? It's this churn that you fight to get out of just to be good.
I don't want to jump to the ACC, but they had media week this past few days or 2 weeks, even whatever it boiled down to. And listening to Dabo Swinney talk about Clemson and what they've done, like he is so stuck on talking about his record, talking about winning a championship, just absolutely avoiding what took place last year, which was a mitigated catastrophe. And if it's a mitigated catastrophe again, I don't think Dabo survives because there's never this point, Charlie, of accountability. Like we get it. Your record is unbelievable. We get it. You've won a national championship, but last year it didn't work. And you had players on that team that many thought would win a ton of postseason awards that never melded together. To Dan's point, you bring in all of these kids into transfer portal, which he did a little last year, and it's about melding them into your system. Any team, regardless of sport, can bring in all-stars. But if they can't figure that thing out as a collective unit, the team doesn't have the type of success that I think everybody imagines.
I think what Dabo Swinney is kind of holding him back a little bit. And to your point, he can't keep talking about his history, but at the same time, he is also not going to be the type of man that he is. He's not going to go out there and say, well, our GM spent way too much money on the wrong positions. Cade Klubnik, the guy that we spent all this money on to be our starting quarterback, was atrocious last season and injured for part of it too. Like, he just wasn't a guy that you wanted to rely on. He's not going to go and blame all these other problems. He's just going to go and say, you know what? I'm good. I know I'm good. I know this team can be good. Let's go based off that resume. I'm not going to throw other people under the bus.
And but I'm not even talking about throwing people under the bus. Even for him to just have some accountability to say, I didn't do the job. I didn't mesh things together. I didn't. It just all gets swept elsewhere. And it's almost an avoidance model.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. Cause my favorite meme is Leslie Nielsen standing in front of an exploding fireworks factory, telling people to please disperse. There's nothing to see. It feels a little like that. I don't want to talk about the stuff that's happening behind me right now, or that has happened. We're just going to talk. There's nothing to see. Moving along, we're just going to talk about my resume.
Absolutely. Okay. And so when we get into the upcoming weeks, I also want to do this with some Division III conferences as well, because it again, It's the idea we get excited about football season around the corner mixed with the other half of the brain is like, pump the brakes. We're still in summer. We don't want to let this go. With that, we're going to take a break. On the other side of the break, we're going to check in with our friends at Bryan and Stratton College and bring in the head soccer coach, Michael Beatty, slated to join us. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, welcome back in College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sports Book.
You went way different with the bumps this week.
I went a little
You
different.
did? Yeah, it's
change it up.
Yep.
Keep Charlie on his heels.
All right, I like it.
next week we play Dallas.
We've got to find like a YouTube video to indoctrinate Charlie, young Charlie, into what Dallas was for the whole country on a Friday night when you just had network television. All right. And do you know about who shot
Back in
JR?
like the 1800s.
Oh,
Ooh,
I like
wow,
I know
Charlie.
I know the thing like who shot JR. Like I know it was like a whole
you
TV
didn't
event.
have to go to the whole 1800s.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. He just politely. Oh,
I think South Park did a parody of Who Shot JR. It was like who's Cartman's dad. That's what they did. And they did a whole thing about it.
Luckily, there's a guest on the liner. This could have gone sideways in a hurry. Let's get to the Nicolay Law Talk and text line and bring in the head soccer coach for both the men's and women's programs at Bryan and Stratton College. It's Michael Beatty. Coach, good morning. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, actually, I'm from that era.
Yes.
The Who Shot JR.
All right.
We can stay away from that one.
Okay. All right. We'll reminisce at some other point during the course of this. Hey, Coach, what has a little bit away from Bryan and Stratton right now, but what has it meant for the World Cup to be held here in the United States as far as just growing excitement, which then hopefully will bleed over into recruiting and things of that nature with regards to soccer?
I mean, having the World Cup here since, this year, we haven't had it since 1994. And after 1994, we saw the massive increase in the youth sports. 1996, we got our first major pro league that's still going strong today, which has added more teams. There's 3 other tiers of it. Actually, there's tiers all over the place now with it. But we are seeing a lot more people wanting to get into the college game, wanting to come over from overseas as well as the local. So it has been massive for us this year.
Coach, I got to ask you, and this is, we will talk about Bryan and Stratton, I promise you, but I've got to ask a lot of questions about when Team USA lost and, the feeder system in Team USA. And there's been this argument over what is going on with MLS and in enacting some form of promotion and relegation. What do you think of that?
This is, hate to say this stuff, but I've always been one where I believe in the European system. It's been one where when you have promotion and relegation, it does more competition for your players, for your teams. Having their youth development system where the kids are brought up through the academies is massive, where they're not paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 a season with travel and everything else to play. So you have the best athletes playing. I feel, and I know this isn't going to go over too well, I think we have charged parents too much money to play a sport for kids.
I agree.
And until we get away from that, we are losing some of the best athletes that can't afford to play the sport because we overcharge for it. You need grass, you need cleats, you need uniforms, and you can play this game.
He took my next question right away from me because we completely agree, Coach, with the fact that we're basing so much of this on socioeconomics. We're leaving a lot of our kids behind, so to speak, and a lot of talent behind that could really help out both at the collegiate and at the national level when we talk about things like the World Cup.
Completely agree. When you sit there and you look at the teams all over the world, right? If you take Belgium, we have more registered soccer players in Belgium as people, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
When you actually look at it, when you take, Luka Modric and those guys, they have less people in their country than Wisconsin has. And they've made a semifinal twice. It's pretty wild when we sit there and we look at it in those terms, that why can't we compete at a higher level with this? And it's not where you can't tell me it's, the best athletes don't play it. We have some incredible athletes playing soccer. but we're missing something. I've always thought it's how they develop them there. It's some countries don't even have referees until 13. We're screaming our heads off at U6 and U8 because little Jimmy's got to score 13 goals because we put the fastest guys up front and we just want to score, 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 score. When you go over there, they don't care. I remember talking to a big director at a massive club, and he said, yeah, the Americans, you guys could come over here and, we work on our tactics and we work on teaching and we're fine losing at a younger age. And he goes, if you come over here up until U13, we might split 50-50 on wins. And then he looks at me and goes, and then we'll beat you for the rest of your life. And he's not wrong.
Wow.
Because they're teaching them how to play the game more than winning and losing. And we have such a high aspiration to win as much as we can at such a young age.
Dan, before you jump in, because I think what he was just talking about is something we've even seen now in basketball, right? The infusion of European players within the NBA and how strong they are from fundamental skills with their fundamental skills, and it's one of the reasons why I think they've been incredibly successful. And I think that just parlays off of what Coach said.
It's a mindset thing is kind of what I'm hearing. There's a different perspective on how to develop. And Coach, I think you said it spot on. You've got one side of the world that's thinking strictly about wins and losses, and the other side of the world that's thinking about development. And I love the story you told about we'll just beat you the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I just think that's, to me, that just kind of that it's a picture of where we are in terms of the sport right now. So Coach, let's get back to you. Let's talk about what you're doing at Bryant and Stratton. And when you are going out and you are recruiting players, and be that on the men's team or the women's team, how do you put Bryant and Stratton out there? What are the kind of players that you're looking for when you're out and on the recruiting trail?
Well, it goes right back to the same conversation we were just having. We are the perfect landing spot for anybody that's not pulled D1, quote unquote, right out of high school or has aspirations to get further. When we're talking to kids, my first thing is, how far do you want soccer to take you? Because you have to do the right steps. And we kind of go on that European mentality of going, hey, we want to win, right? Bryant and Stratton, we're very competitive. Our softball team is fantastic, basketball, baseball, all the sports there are pushing. We got great support from our athletic department. They're on me. We've made the playoffs, but we got to push further and further. But really, the biggest thing is, if you're not recruited right away from D1 out of high school, is your path better to go JUCO, what we call it, play a year or two, actually play, not sit on a roster of 56 people, play, and then move on. And now with the transfer portal, I got a text, 3 weeks ago from a major D1 program in our state going, hey, what JUCO strikers do you know? Because they're looking at the JUCO community because those guys are experienced. They have the game time. They have the minutes on the field. It's very, very competitive because you have players from all over the world. One of the teams in our region, 14 French Academy players. They're good. They won a national title. So the steps on when we're recruiting it, come in, get your education started, get going, playing, and then let's help you move on. And that's really what our model's been.
And Coach, how
much? Pretty good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. How much of a challenge can that be when you're sitting, let's say, in the living room talking to an athlete and their parents when, I don't know, I'll just use Wisconsin as an example. Let's say Wisconsin is contemplating giving them a scholarship, even though they know they might not play for 2 or 3 years. But this idea, this mentality that we have sometimes with a scholarship, that's got to be a bit of a challenge to compete with at points.
Absolutely it is. And that really has kind of changed in the last 2 years, because I didn't want to say the team, but that was actually the team that called looking for a striker.
Okay.
Because of the transfer portal, right?
Sure.
It has completely changed the landscape of recruiting. I'm seeing, especially on the men's side, not as much on the women's side, The women's side, they start very early. They start to lock players up sophomore and junior year, where the men, they're getting into the senior year before they're locking them down. And now teams don't even know who they're going to have year to year. So you could sit there and look at any, Marquette, UWM, Green Bay, Badgers, right? In our area, the D1s. You look at the roster, it's not going to be the same next year. And we're not even talking about the seniors. The freshmen, sophomores, and juniors are all hitting the transfer portal. I remember at one point in time, somebody was telling me there was over 3,000 soccer players in the portal. Why?
Yeah, great question. Yep, there you go.
Everybody, all the coaches are asking, and I talk to a lot of these guys at camps. We do a lot of networking. Just because we're JUCO and the Badgers are D1 or UWM is D1 doesn't mean we're all not talking. First question is, why are they in the portal? Not happy? Is it them? Is it the coach? Is it what? Why are they leaving? Because that's a big mentality of going, they also want players that are committed. That was another thing that was brought up by a coach that said, we're looking at the JUCOs because they've already played 2 years. They're showing they're committed. They're showing that they're dedicated to playing on the field rather than, oh, I didn't get enough playing time. I'm going to jump in the portal and go try somewhere else. Why is anybody else going to look at that? Because A, you haven't proved you can play at this level.
How
So
do you
the recruiting,
Yeah.
to get back to your question, it's a tough sell. But once you start laying everything out, and if somebody from the Badgers are making you an offer, hey, man, you really got to look at it. But ask them where you really stand. And if you need a year or two, we're here for you. And we've had a few players like that.
How does it work for you then? You're talking about D1 coaches looking for people that are committed. Obviously, you've got, I'm going to call it a really interesting pitch. Come in, play. We're going to help you move on. I mean, that's a pretty motivating opportunity for a young athlete that wants to get to D1 or whatever level they want to achieve. But how do you find guys that and women that are good fits for your team, right? Because even the world that we live in with the transfer portal, they're probably still kind of eyeing what other opportunities that are out there. How do you find people that you feel are those that are going to be committed and want to develop at Bryant and Stratton?
A lot of it is from just getting on the phone with them and learning about their character. I mean, character is massive today. It's not the same as when we were growing up and everything else. When we sit there and I talk to players or my staff is talking to players, we really spend the time talking to them, getting to know them to see what their ambitions really are. And we have half the players that we feel are, hey, this person is going to make a huge impact for us. And then we're like, if we lose this player, it's all right. Because we do want the character side and everything else. So when you go and you try to figure out if they're going to be committed and everything, it's really just from taking the time to really talk to the players. Get on the phone with them, meet them in person, video calls, with technology and everything. I recruit players from all over the world. I can sit there and get on a Zoom call with a player in Idaho that's actually from Belgium. And we had a great conversation, and she was actually a transfer. And she ended up coming to us because of the steps that we can help her to get to the right place. But it's really through getting to know the players and everything else is really how you find out that dedication. Just learning about them, their history, how they grew up. Those are all big things for us. And I can tell you, it's a huge thing that the pros look at as well. It's a huge thing that the D1s look at as well. They get on the phone with them. They get to know them. And that's how you really determine what are going to be good fits for you.
Coach, appreciate the time on this Saturday morning. And as the season gets up and running, hope to have you back on and talk a little bit more. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. We'd be more than happy to jump on with you guys. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too. As well. That's the head coach of Bryant and Stratton's both men's and women's soccer program, Michael Beatty, joining us. Had some really profound things in the midst of that interview when we're talking about youth sports and where that goes to. I can't wait to get him back on because I think we could almost turn that into
dig into that
segment
a lot
with
deeper.
regards
Yep.
to youth sports and what that means for future college athletic participation. With that, let's get to a break. It's our final one on a Saturday. When we come back, it'll be time to hand out some shovels. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We're powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
You know what? I won't shovel the funk. I won't shovel the funk. I won't shovel the funk. I feel like shovel the funk. I got shovel the funk. You wanna shovel the funk? Do you wanna shovel the funk? Then go ahead. Go.
One last time. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. As always, we are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And as we always do in wrapping up our fine program, it's time to hand out some shovels. Oh, Professor, I start with you, sir.
I go off of our conversation about uniforms earlier, and I give my shovel to Culver's. Let's make it happen. Let's make the University of Wisconsin Culver's uniform. Let's do that. I love having the Butterburger on the side of the helmet. In fact, we'll just do the opposite. We'll just put a University of Wisconsin patch right on the Culver's jersey.
That's
and
genius.
one game we get the Culver's jersey. That is gold.
Let's just make it like the Iowa or Nebraska, like another like state where you're just like, yeah, they probably got a bunch of people that like Culver's too, and then we just have like a big burger bowl.
The Burger Bowl. We are nothing but ideas this morning. I cannot believe we have not been
better than the Mayo Bowl.
Some days where we can barely talk, and other days we're on top.
We're just on top of it. All right, Charlie, you're up.
I saved this one from last week because I wanted to do it last week, and then we got cut off a little bit by the leadoff show. But not EA Sports, but the development team for EA Sports. EA Sports wanted to put microtransactions into offline modes of EA College Football 2027, which they've never done before. No other sports game does that. They only really ever have microtransactions in the Ultimate Team modes, which fine, whatever. But they paywalled a bunch of stuff that should be easy for the player just to adjust, mess with themselves, to have a good time. The dev team fought back against EA and said that we do not want to keep these in the game. We're going to find ways to work around this. We'll give you extra microtransactions in Ultimate Team, but in the offline modes, we're taking that completely out. We're going to redevelop the game before it releases. It just released, actually. And we're going to take all those out of the game because the player deserves better. So my shovel goes to the dev team, not EA. Screw EA. I hate this.
This is like us talking to him about Dallas.
Thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth. Charlie, you just spit that all out, and I'm thinking it's for a completely different age demographic, because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. No idea what you're talking about.
I'm just nodding my head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go home and watch Dallas. You guys are going to go home and play some sports video games, and we'll even out. We'll come back. We'll meet back up next
I'm like, what? Pong only had like the two sticks that moved up and down.
I was just thinking that. I'm going to go home and play Pong.
That was
some asteroids. Back
yeah, the spinning
Space
triangle.
Invaders.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's reincarnate some of those
Got
things.
a quarter?
All right. So my shovel this week goes to this guy across the table, Charlie, and to Sparky, who have been gracious enough since we've been back on the air to have me a couple of times on in the afternoon, which you do so well every weekday from 2 to 5. But every time I come on, Charlie, what happens?
It doesn't work because you go on video, and then we try to go on video, and the video you can't hear us, or we can't hear you. Sometimes you can hear us, and other times we can hear you, and it just never works, and we have to put you on the phone. I try every time. I'm like, Don, you want to try video this week? And he goes, yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. And every time it just does not work.
It never works, right? So Sparky lays in about, just put him on the phone. What is your problem? Are you in a cave? What's wrong with your computer? You hear it all, right? Because the technology isn't working. So it's going to be a little over a week ago. Josh, in the midst of the morning show, was going to have Mark Baden, chief meteorologist from WISN TV here in Milwaukee, as part of his guests at the 7 o'clock hour. And he did this great intro, right? He had music. He had this great intro. And then all you hear is Mark say, I can't hear anything. And I was like, yes, it is not me. This is a man who's got a TV station, who is a man of science, and his computer is not working. So, Sparky, you get my shovel, because it ain't my fault that this blessed thing does not work. There are others out there in the world of guests that have been on this fine station where their computer hasn't worked either. So,
Well,
there.
but for Mark Baden, he's been on multiple times before, and it's worked before. So this is a one-time thing. I don't know. It's happened
It
multiple
didn't
times
work,
with you now.
Charlie. It
It's
didn't
happened
work.
multiple times with
I
you.
didn't
don't
ask if it
know.
worked the 3 or 4 times prior. It didn't work on that particular day. So I'm not the only
All
one
right.
whose computer struggles a little bit with regards to all of this. So next week, guys, we'll obviously talk about what's happening in the world of college athletics from the national perspective, but I do want to start looking at some of the D3 stuff, because before you know it, again, football season will be upon us. And then we'll start looking at some of those WIAC matchups that we love, and we start getting into just the nuts and bolts of what is the most wonderful time of the year, which is college football season in the fair state of Wisconsin.
Yes, it is. And it's like you said earlier, 7 weeks. It is hard to believe that we're sitting there. We're just weeks away, 3 weeks away from camps opening up
Yep.
and doing all that. It's crazy to think that we're here.
It's going to be a fun time. All right, let's get up out of here. Our thanks to Michael Beatty, the head soccer coach at Bryan and Stratton College, for joining us. For the Professor Dan Underberg, for Charlie Usen, I'm Don Wachillis. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend, because we're right back here in 6 and 22.